Hey, Rooster Boosters. Welcome to Rooster Booster Time with the big guy, Scott Ferraro. We're back again to give you some more insight into some of the Roosters on the roster. And here we have Jake Feury. And Jake has been a Rooster for 3 years now. And he's going to give us some insight on kind of what it's like to be on the roster and fight for a spot every week to stay on there. Jake, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Scott. It's awesome what you're doing with the show. So thanks. It's great to be on.
Appreciate it. So we'll get right into it. A lot of people know that a lot of MLR players, besides obviously playing professional rugby, they do other things outside of that. Now, you are actually the owner and I guess the head physical trainer of Stretch Recovery Lounge in Ridgewood, New Jersey. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
So what's your main focus with the business there?
Yeah, so Stretch Recovery Lounge is essentially, we opened up in October 2019, and it's an athletic recovery facility. And so we do a lot of different modalities to help people recover in between their workouts. So whether it's assisted stretching or soft tissue work, Graston, Normatec compression boots, Hypervolt, cupping, things like that. It's essentially an athlete recovery space. And then given the last couple of months and the global pandemic and everything going on with coronavirus, we pivoted the business a bit, and we also have added a fitness element. So now kind of half of our facility is dedicated to recovery and half of it is essentially a gym for one-on-one personal training. So now we're both a place where you can come do personal training and do fitness, and then also have the recovery aspect as well.
That's great. I think it's for people who aren't professional athletes, obviously, who are doing running marathons, doing Ironman competitions. Obviously recovery is a big thing for just the average person. If you just want to kind of do more of a workout than just kind of just getting your reps in. And I think that type of thing is now going from being a professional athlete type of thing to a normal person type of thing, because obviously people have to work out and then go to work the next day. And continue their workouts. Obviously everybody's had that where they start a workout or they start a regiment and 3 days in they're sore and they don't know what to do. So it's glad to see that these things are popping up that can actually help somebody, again, outside of a professional athlete or a semi-professional athlete to get this done. So you mentioned COVID. I'd like to point out that unfortunately your business had to close down due to the statewide regulations of some of these businesses closing, but you were one of the first guys to adopt the model of putting something out on the internet as far as classes. And I mean, literally like 3 or 4 days in, you already had out there that you were going to have classes for people. So what kind of people were like, did you have a lot of feedback from it? How did it go?
Yeah. So, thank you for that. And, it was a bit of a learning process. So given our focus is really, really hands-on in our facility. We're doing massage work, we're doing stretching work. It's involves physical contact, right? So it's not the easiest type of service to convert to a virtual space because obviously virtual, you can't have that physical human contact that is involved with a lot of the modalities that we do. So we had to try to, take our audience and let them know, well, this could be an extended period of time that you're hung up and you're stuck inside. And there are things that you can do, whether it's stretching or doing self-myofascial release, using foam rollers, using rolling sticks, using lacrosse balls and things like that to kind of keep you moving and keep your mobility and keep you healthy. So that was kind of a bit of a learning curve, I think, for a lot of our audience, especially the people who came to us were people who really wanted the hands-on. So it took a little bit of convincing at first to try to tell people, hey, you can't just take 3 months off without doing anything. But there are things we can do. So I think once we kind of were able to educate and let people know that they're, while it might not be quite as beneficial as getting the work done in the facility that we do, there's still gains that you can make, and you can definitely try to maintain as much as, you've already had on your own. So once we got that message out, it started to pick up a little bit.
Awesome. And I think everybody realized, at first, I don't think most people realized how the length of how long everything was going to be shut down for. And I think, by week 5, people realized, hey, I have to take this seriously. I'm stuck in the house. I'm not, some people, my father in particular, like he's 65 years old. He goes to work, takes the train, then he walks the 10 or 12 blocks back and forth, to the train. And he lost that. And just that little bit of walking every day, now he's been sitting on the couch. He still hasn't been recalled back to the office yet. And you can tell he's kind of like, getting a little, his shoulders are rolling forward a little bit. He's kind of getting a little paunch, and he's realizing now that even that little bit of work that you would get without being touched is something that you need. So I've found that really amazing that you were literally like the first people I saw to do it, and you implemented it very quickly. And it looks like your customers turned around and really started to enjoy it. So speaking of that, my biggest question for you is, so having this place in New Jersey, was it easier for you to go to the Rooney practices in this 2020 season versus going all the way to Randall's Island in 2019?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I actually, for the 2018 Rooney season and for the 2019 Rooney season, I kind of had a different career setup and life situation. I was living in Weehawken, New Jersey, which is right on the Hudson River, across the street from the city, pretty much as close as you can be to New York without being in New York, closest area in Jersey. So, and I was working in Midtown Manhattan. So I would pretty much commute from Weehawken to Midtown, and then I would work all day in Midtown. Then I go straight from Midtown to Randall's Island, and then I would have to get myself back from Randall's Island to Weehawken. So that whole situation, was not ideal, and it was difficult. Getting from that situation set up with Staten Island would have been way more difficult and almost unreasonable for me to do. So it's honestly worked out really well that I moved actually further into Jersey, believe it or not, and opened the business further into Jersey, where I had a car, and then I can just drive to practice in Staten Island. So ultimately it ended up working out. I would say they were about equally inconvenient, but the timing worked out really well, because commuting from Weehawken in Jersey to Midtown to Staten Island, and then getting from Staten Island back to Jersey would have been really difficult. So ultimately it was pretty much a wash in the end of the day.
I mean, I don't know how you feel, but like for me, I did the commute, to Manhattan for 10 years, and the subway's great when you're, going to work and stuff, but there's something about driving to work or driving to a place, and especially late at night, you can kind of, obviously you're paying attention to the road, but you're listening to the music you like. You can have the AC on if you want. You've been in the friggin' subway in Manhattan. That thing is just hot air rush. It's like a hot breath hitting you in the face. And I'm sure after, even in February when you guys are practicing, it's not the best place to be after you guys work out. So I could just assume that just being in a car and just that little bit of fresh air makes the difference.
Yeah, definitely. Being able to have like a car you can put the heat on when, especially if it rained in like December or something, and then I had to get from Randall's Island. Randall's Island, I had to take a bus to Manhattan.
There's only that one bus that goes there.
Yeah, I had to take the bus over, and then I had to take 2 subways, and then I had to take once I got to Port Authority, I had to take a bus to Weehawken, and then I had a 10-minute walk to my apartment. So it was like a crazy journey, especially if it was like cold and you were wet. So it is definitely nice being able to be in my car. I'm not a huge fan of paying the tolls over the bridges. The tolls are very difficult. But it's ultimately, it's a wash in the end. They're all difficult, but I do appreciate being in the car. It's definitely nice. So ultimately it worked out well. The timing for me to kind of switch from working in Manhattan to working in North Jersey and opening the business, along with the change from Randall's to Staten Island, worked out pretty well for me. So
yeah, and the change over to the Staten Island facility, you actually have I can't talk right now. A locker room. The facilities are a little more. You have a little more in the facility in a way of protection from the elements. Don't get me wrong; you're still outside in February, but you can duck down the hallway to get away from the wind. And to be honest, Randall's Island, where it's located, the wind is always hitting off that East River and the end of that Harlem River there, versus where you are in Staten Island is not really on the water, so it is kind of actually a different environment. For people who don't know or haven't been to Randall's Island, we do have international viewers. So for the international viewer, for me to go to Staten Island, they actually want me to go. I live in New York. They actually want me to go into New Jersey, go around the island of Manhattan, and get into Staten Island. That's actually the way that they send me. Believe it or not, it's easier to do it that way than go through Manhattan sometimes.
Yeah, it's not easy moving around in the New York City area. So New York has its perks, but transportation is definitely a big challenge.
Yeah, it's killer. So, one of the things that I think is unique about you is you're one of those guys who's considered a quote unquote part-time player, a quote unquote fringe guy. And I don't think that's a term that's a pejorative term, I think, or a derogatory term. I think that's a term that means you're fighting to make a roster just like anybody else in a professional league. I mean, you see it, practice squad guys in the football team always trying to crack the 53-man roster. You see it in baseball guys coming up from the AAA, AA, AAA, single A to hit the big roster. And I think you're one of those guys. So can you just give us like an overview of how it works for you as one of those players?
Yeah, so my journey to Rooney was definitely a little different than the vast majority of the players. When I first started, I was probably 23 years old, I believe. I was my first year out of college. It was 2018 was the first season. And when they decided to make the team, obviously the most convenient place to look is Nyack and Old Blue, because those are the two clubs that play in the highest division in the area. And when they ended up, after going through tryouts and everything, the vast majority of our team was from those two clubs. There were maybe 2 or 3 guys that weren't. So I was one of the guys that was from a smaller club. I grew up playing for Morris Rugby in New Jersey. And so that was definitely a hurdle and a challenge, because I really had to prove myself during tryouts in the first year that I can compete at that level. And had to really put my hand up. So I had to, I definitely couldn't go out to tryouts and just try to, do my job. I had to definitely go out there and try to really make a name for myself and put my hand up and do something to stand out.
Mm-hmm.
And, once I kind of got into the fold that very first season, obviously then I had all the opportunity in the world to kind of continue to develop during training and, play obviously a lot in the preseason games. And then I actually got quite a bit of playing time, even started a bit during the first exhibition season. So I got a lot of minutes that first year, which was great. Each year it's gotten definitely more difficult. We are bringing in more and more talent every year, and the roster is definitely getting really, really crowded with really top-notch players. So it just kind of makes you have to elevate your game to that next level. And some people might, if you say I'm a fringe guy or whatever, I agree. I don't take it as a point to kind of keep me down. I kind of just use it as a way to keep pushing forward and use it as motivation. And, being one of the younger guys on the team, there's still a ton of, room for me to grow and develop and get back on that roster. And, having gotten quite a bit of minutes that first year, I know what it's like, and I definitely want to push back and get into the roster more moving forward.
Even though the 2020 season was kind of truncated, obviously, because of COVID, I think the one thing we saw with Rooney was that, unfortunately, injuries play a large part. And we saw that up front in the pack. And a lot of the younger forwards got this playing time because of injury. And like I said, it's unfortunate that has to happen, but it is part of professional sports. So I think that for anybody in the MLR and any MLR team, if that opportunity shows up, you have to make the most of it. And you had Julio come in on his first cap, I believe, and score that try. He might have been the youngest MLR try scorer, I think, or he was close to it. And again, it was just an opportunity presented himself for him to get some meaningful minutes, and they put him in. He made the most of it. And I think that you're going to be one of the guys that when you get to have your moment, you're going to seize it. That's why you're on the roster. That's why the coaches want you where you're at. Now, as far as the actual rugby, what position, there's always two sides of this question, because every guy is a team player. So if the coach tells you you're going to play hooker and you need minutes, you're going to go play hooker. But where do you feel natural in the back line? Like, what's your natural position?
I would say my natural position is outside center. And I've played a lot of different positions growing up. So I think it took me a while to find that spot. But I would say that's where I feel most comfortable. And I feel like that's where my skill set fits the most. And I do think it fits well with Rooney's system and my skill set matching what we're trying to do. But, I definitely get moved around quite a bit. I played quite a bit of wing, actually, as well. And then even, inside center as well. So I'm pretty comfortable at either center position or on the wing. And, I definitely try to put my hand up as a guy who, if I'm a utility guy on the bench, I can kind of be plugged into a couple different spots. And even growing up, I mean, I've played scrum half, fly half, inside, outside, wing, fullback, and even played a little bit in the back row and the forward. So I definitely am a guy that moved around a lot. But if I had to pick one position, I would call myself an outside center.
Awesome. It's funny because I don't think a lot of our fans realize how big some of you guys are. You're taller. You're broad shouldered. You're not. Everybody thinks of a back and they think of smaller, petite guys, and really, Will Leonard, you're kind of barrel chested, big guys, and you have that ability to move through there. And I think you're unique on the Rooney squad for being an American, kind of like Mike Petrie and Chris Mattina, who has been in rugby so long that you have that IQ that other younger guys might not have who just played in college. You were a high school All-American, then you did play 4 years at Middlebury College. So I think that helps in one, like you said, raising your hand and showing what you could do because you have that IQ. The coaches can tell you something and trust that you're going to understand it and do it pretty much the first time. And I think that's a mindset that actually helps players as a team. You don't have to be the starter. You don't have to be the captain to help the synergy of a team. You have to be vocal. You have to be helpful. You have to ask stupid questions or answer stupid questions for anybody. And I think you do that. Obviously, you're a very articulate person, and you have to articulate things for a living as you're doing them on clients. So I think that's just another notch in your belt on why you fit in the Rooney system and just fit on a professional sports team. So now I'm going to get into these hinky questions that I ask everybody. So what's your favorite sports movie?
Yeah. Ooh, sports movie. Top of the head, I got to go Remember the Titans. Excellent movie. Denzel Washington, super quotable movie, and a true story that I think is really inspiring. So I'm definitely a huge Remember the Titans guy.
I'm trying to think. I think Will Burke had Rocky, but then I think Remember the Titans second. And okay. I forget, somebody else had Remember the Titans. Maybe it was Mikey Brown, I think, had Remember the Titans up there.
It's an incredible one. So you got to have Remember the Titans up there.
Yeah, I mean, that's a classic for everybody going, I'm football, and you're a football guy. I'm a football guy. So that's one of those movies,
yeah.
It's like the program. Everybody's seen the program. If you played football, you see the program. You see Rudy, you see Remember the Titans. So my next question is, what do you eat prior to a meal? So again, this is one of those questions that's kind of nuanced. We had the butcher come on. He does intermittent fasting. Rob Aramascu kind of was like, I don't do intermittent fasting, but on match days, I really don't eat, at least 6 hours before a match. So what about you? What's your habit for eating?
So I'm definitely a guy who likes to be full. I might be different than a lot of others.
You're the first guy to say that.
Yeah, I like to be full, but sometimes the match day butterflies get the best of me, and I do struggle to eat a lot of times on match day. So pretty much 6 days a week, I'm eating as much as I possibly can. And then on match day, it definitely becomes a situation where I'm trying to force myself to eat. So, I mean, definitely night before, I'm always looking for like pasta and meatballs and getting some good carbs before a game and hydrating. But morning of, before a game, it's usually a banana to help with cramping and a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. That's pretty much what I get. Maybe a granola bar thrown in there. But I as much as I would love to be able to eat a huge meal before a game, I usually just can't handle it. I just, something about the rugby game butterflies get in there and ruin the appetite for me.
I mean, I haven't played anything, rugby, football, hockey in years, but I do, throughout high school and college, I was the same way. Like I couldn't really eat that much before a match or a game. And even hydration, I tried to hydrate the night before because I felt like if I had that much, you just kind of sloshing around, and I hated that feeling. So that was always a struggle for me, trying to maintain that balance pre-match and then making sure at least by halftime, knowing that I had to go like another. Well, I played Division IV. So, we kind of, everybody played 80 minutes. You're lucky if you had 15 guys show up.
Oh yeah.
So I wasn't one of those front row guys that were like, 60 minutes and I'm out, 50 minutes, I'm out.
Yeah, you had to pretty much,
game. Yeah, unless you were playing the whole game. So for me, it was that struggle at halftime. Like, should I drink more water? Should I not? It's one of those things that, especially playing D4, you don't necessarily think about. And I graduated college 10 years ago, 11 years ago. So, it wasn't a physical fitness, eating right, hydration wasn't something you did just to do it unless you were playing Division I sports or Division III sports.
Yeah.
So it's now it's kind of a thing where like just college kids aren't even playing sports, but they're all eating right and hydrating and eating bananas and all that stuff. And I just find it funny that the game of rugby has changed in college because of the MLR and because of guys going off to play in Europe. And it's fun to see. It's fun to go and see teams like Iona, teams like Mount St. Mary, and these kind of little schools showing up on a big stage of rugby, and you get that now with everybody and the education of this stuff. So my next question: so you talked about butterflies. Is there, I guess, a technique or something you do? Music? Do you read? Do you just prepare to kind of offset those butterflies?
Yeah, I love a long leisurely, pre-game routine in the locker room. I love taking my time, getting my cleats, tied just right. I love getting my tape on my arm perfect. I love throwing some music in. I love having like quiet time just to sit and think. I love like having that time. That I definitely really cherish that time before the game, reflect on my job, make sure I know my assignments, make sure I know all of my roles, make sure I have all the plays down, offset piece, and understand our patterns. That's really like a really important time for me. And always say a prayer for safety for everybody on the field, both on both sides is really number one. And then other than that, once we're getting really close to game time, I'm stretching, I'm foam rolling, I'm doing a lot of the things that I tell all my clients that they need to do through my business. And I'm just trying to get my body moving. I mean, I might be young, but I definitely feel like I have a lot of miles on me. So I'm definitely doing everything I can to give myself every extra edge, getting myself loose, getting myself warm and ready to go out there and perform to the best of my ability.
It's interesting because, like, I know it's funny. Mikey Brown and Butcher had a similar mindset of preparing and looking at notes, and you could see that obviously they spend a lot of time together. And I think most guys have an individual routine, and I just find your routine interesting because it's almost ceremonial. The way like a samurai prepares for battle. You know what I mean? It's which is completely different than me. I'm like, oh crap, I gotta poop, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. I left my cleat. Oh, I'm missing this. Where's my mouthpiece? I was always all over the place. I never had a mouthpiece. I mean, never. I was always picking up dirty mouthpieces from the pitch. I was totally not like that. You seem to be more of a type A personality than me, but I could see how that works though.
I think it just comes down to like respecting the game. I take the game so seriously, and I never step on the field without putting 100% into it. A lot of people can go out and play a casual game of rugby. That's really hard for me. I am always 100% dialed in the whole time. And, I've had injuries and stuff, and I've missed games. I've missed big games. I've missed entire seasons in the past. And I definitely feel like every game is a gift. So I almost take that time to be super appreciative, and I really soak in every second of it. So if that means getting to the locker room an hour before everybody else and really taking my time foam rolling, taking my time stretching, it's all about appreciation. It's me like really appreciating the opportunity I have today to go out there and play. Because everybody's career has a time clock, but unfortunately we don't all play rugby at the highest level you can forever. So I'm definitely trying to soak it up as much as possible and really be aware that, now's the time we need to seize it. And so I need to do my best today.
That's a great mindset to have. And I think you actually, in some professional athletes, you don't see that. I mean, I'm just going to throw out, if you're a baseball fan, Yoenis Cespedes, he was golfing, he's doing this, he's screwing around on his ranch. And he wasn't, he hurt himself on his ranch, and then he hurt himself playing golf, and he wasn't prepared for the season with the Mets. And, one, you look like a goof, like, you're a professional athlete. How could you do that? And two, you're not holding yourself accountable if you're doing that. And I think more successful professional athletes have your mindset of, I have a short amount of time to do this, kind of like the Tom Brady method. He's one of those guys. He knows that his time's running out, so he has to eat, train, recover, all in that time period to maintain what he does. And I mean, I think it's again, the scientific approach to athletics is changed so much versus back, when guys were drinking beers and playing football and smoking cigarettes in the locker room.
Yeah.
But it's interesting again to hear your perspective and then doing it for a living and then actually following that procedure. Because I mean, you could tell somebody to do something and then blow it off on your own. But again, you're holding yourself accountable because it makes the team better. So my other question to you would be, 5 years from now, you're a little older, professional rugby career's kind of out of reach for you because it's, father time's ticking. As you look to expand your business, obviously you have a brick and mortar in Ridgewood, like we said. Would you go and contract to an MLR team, to the NFL teams, to the NHL teams?
Yeah, absolutely. We already were dipping our toe into that arena this year, actually. And we had a good relationship with the New York Guardians, who are the XFL, the New York XFL team, who we work with on multiple occasions. And then, along with a number of, contracts with local, high school age and club age sports teams as well. So that's definitely, the idea when I opened up this place was never, I'm always thinking big, and the goal is definitely always to have multiple locations and definitely work with teams because I think we do, our service and our methodology is really, really good and nuanced. And it's something that a lot of people could use to elevate to the next level, particularly for a sports team. So it's definitely something that we've already started to look at, dipped our toe into, and that we can move into going forward.
That's great. Again, we always have to think about life outside of rugby. Everybody's not going to be the Dan Carters of the world, the Johnny Wilkinsons of the world. And let's be honest, you can play rugby at a high level, and then you can also do other things at a high level. And that's the whole point of this journey, especially in the MLR. I mean, do everything 110%. Jake, I'd like to thank you for being on Rooster Booster Time. It was a pleasure. You opened my eyes to the world of being that fringe player, doing what you love, playing rugby at 100%, doing what you love outside of rugby at 100%, and the trials and tribulations that come with both of that. It's an awesome story. Thank you for being on.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think the biggest thing in that position is just, even if your role is to go out and practice, you just got to make the players around you better and help them prepare for that game. I mean, that's just as important as, any other role. So I appreciate you giving me the time on here, and thanks again for everything.
Awesome, Jake. And Rooster Boosters, that's another episode of Rooster Booster Time. I'll catch you guys all next week. Thanks a lot.